India has signed a historic energy deal with the United States of America, a 1-year long-term contract to import LPG, that is liquefied petroleum gas from the US Gulf Coast. It's the first time Indian public sector oil companies have done this. But this breakthrough is landing at a moment when Washington is threatening sweeping new sanctions, not just on Russia or Iran, but on any country that does business with them. And yes, that includes India. So what exactly is going on over here? Why is India turning to the US for LPG now? And how might US sanctions reshape the energy map for India and for the world? Let's break it down. India's Petroleum Minister Hardeep Singh Puri went public with the news on the 17th of November, calling it a quote-unquote historic first. For years, India has imported LPG, but mostly from West Asia. The US was not a major part of that supply chain. Now, that is changing. Indian Oil, Bharat Petroleum and Hindustan Petroleum, the big 3 state-run oil companies of India, have collectively signed a contract to import 2.2 million tons per year of American LPG. Now, to put that into perspective, that is nearly 10% of India's total LPG imports. It's benchmarked to Mont Belvieu, the US's key pricing hub, and it's the first long-term structured deal India has ever signed with the US for LPG. Puri says India is now diversifying its sourcing, something the government has been saying for years now. Now, if you don't live in India, it's easy to underestimate how central LPG is to daily life. For millions of Indian households, especially rural and low-income homes, LPG cylinders are the primary cooking fuel. Let's look at a few key numbers here. First, India is one of the world's fastest-growing LPG markets. Secondly, under the Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana, millions of women have been given subsidized LPG connections. Even last year, when global LPG prices spiked more than 60%, Ujjwala consumers still paid just 500 to 550 rupees per cylinder, while the real cost was over 1,100 rupees per cylinder. That subsidy did not come cheap. The Indian government absorbed over 40,000 crore rupees in 1 year to shield consumers. So, securing a stable and affordable supply of LPG is not just an economic issue. It's political, it's social, it's tied to women's safety, health, and household energy security, which makes this US deal even more important. So, how did this deal come together? Well, according to Puri, teams from Indian Oil, BPCL and HPCL visited major American producers earlier this year, as the US has become one of the world's biggest LPG exporters thanks to its shale boom. And because India has been trying to protect itself against volatile energy markets, especially after the Russia-Ukraine war, OPEC's production cuts, the massive jump in LPG prices, and India's increasing energy demand. Meanwhile, in Washington, the US is gearing up for tougher sanctions. Just a day before India announced this energy milestone, US President Donald Trump escalated sanctions pressure dramatically. Speaking at Palm Beach International Airport, he warned, and I quote, "Any country that does business with Russia will be very severely sanctioned." And he added that Iran, already heavily sanctioned, could soon be hit with even tougher restrictions.
Any country that does business with Russia will be very severely sanctioned. We may add Iran to the formula. Yeah.
Trump says that Republican lawmakers are drafting a legislation that goes far beyond existing penalties, targeting any nation maintaining economic ties with Moscow. And that, of course, includes India, China, several West Asian nations, much of Southeast Asia. And for India, it's not just a threat anymore. Remember, the US has already sanctioned India. As part of its crackdown on Russian energy revenue, the US has already slapped an additional 25% tariff on Indian imports, doubling the total to 50%. The US Treasury explicitly cited, and I quote here again, Russia's lack of serious commitment to a peace process. India continues buying discounted Russian crude oil, something New Delhi says is vital for its energy security. But Washington sees it as helping fund the Kremlin's war effort. So the question remains, how does India expand US energy imports on one hand while facing escalating US sanctions on the other? Russia's President Vladimir Putin's reaction was blunt. He said, and I quote, "No self-respecting country decides anything under pressure." He has warned last month that sanctions could trigger a global oil price spike, one that may hit Western economies the hardest. So, what does all this mean for India's energy future? Now, there are three big takeaways. One, India is hedging, and it's hedging hard. The US LPG deal is part of a broader strategy. Diversify suppliers, avoid overdependence on the Gulf, reduce exposure to geopolitics. In other words, spread the risk. Number two, sanctions could complicate everything. If the US enforces secondary sanctions, countries trading with Russia or Iran could face penalties. India is already in the crosshairs because of Russian crude oil. More sanctions could raise import costs, disrupt supply chains, force India to reroute energy sourcing. And finally, India's balancing act is getting harder. New Delhi wants cheap Russian oil, stable US partnerships, West Asia reliability, and domestic affordability. But the global energy map is shifting fast, and India may soon have to make tougher choices. So the final question is this deal a shield or a signal? On the surface, the US LPG deal is about clean cooking fuel and energy affordability. But in a broader picture, it's part of a much bigger story. The US wants to isolate Russia and Iran. India wants flexibility and low-cost energy. Russia wants to maintain global buyers, and global markets are becoming more politically charged than ever before. So that long-term LPG contract, it's not just about cylinders in Indian kitchens. It's about the world's biggest democracies testing how far they can push and still stay partners.